In today's video, I've compiled a list of recommendations of books that I personally read in the month of August that I think are fantastic that I want to share with you. There's also going to be a couple of clunkers, possibly, but we'll get to that then. We're also going to get into all the different videos that the channel put out, and I'll share with you some just in case you missed them. But before we do any of that, you guys know what we need to do. You might be excited about it. You might be dreading it. I don't know. But either way, we're doing it. Let's roll the intro. Hey, welcome back to BellTube, everyone. If you are brand new here, my name is Brian Bell, and this channel covers fantasy, science fiction, lit RPG. We get into that whole niche of fiction. Today, as I mentioned in the opening, we're going to talk about everything I read in August and where I think some books might be great recommendations for you. Before we get into the actual books that I read, I want to thank a couple of people who sent me some book mail over the month of August. The first one being the book called The Tomb by F. Paul Wilson, and this was sent by none other than my brother from the South. Yes, the main face, note I said face, not brains, the main face behind Talking Story. Just kidding, John. John Minton. John Minton sent me this book. This is book one in Repairman Jack, which is urban fantasy. I'm really looking forward to reading this. As a matter of fact, the first book we talk about today is actually a John Minton recommendation. The other book that I received in the month of August is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This came from one of our viewers named Marianne, and what a really kind gesture. And even beyond that, she sent the most fantastic handwritten note along with this. It moved me, it touched me, Marianne. So thank you so much for doing that. I'm looking forward to getting into that book. I know a lot of my friends have read it, so you found a way to move it up my TBR. Congratulations. And again, thank you so much for sending book mail. It is absolutely never expected, but certainly always appreciated. Let's get into the books. The very first book that I read in the month of August is Patient Zero by Jonathan Maberry. This was sent to me by the aforementioned host of Talking Story, John Minton. We did a little show on his channel earlier in the month, and we called it the BookTube Bromance. I'll throw a link to his channel, of course, in the description. But we talked about Patient Zero, which he sent me, and we talked about Sandman Slim, which is book one in the Sandman Slim series that I sent over to him. We read each other's books and had a lot to love about both of them. In particular, I want to share with you my experience on Patient Zero because it gets to the heart of a lot of One for the Roads that we do here on the channel. And if you're wondering what One for the Road is, stick around. You know we're going to get to one. But Patient Zero, if we're talking about judging a book by its cover, I would have never, ever in a trillion years, that's more than a million, that's more than a billion, not in a trillion years, selected this book at retail. Why? I'm not a real big zombie fan, and if you can see here, I'll try to zoom in when I go into the editing. You can see there's like zombie fingers crawling through the book, and it's kind of a government, military, sci-fi-esque thriller. Completely out of my wheelhouse. This is a genre that I've never really gotten into, but I do trust John, and John knows my taste, and boy, was he right about Patient Zero. This is book one in the Joe Ledger series. Now, Joe Ledger is the main character, and he is a cop that gets drawn into this gigantic government agency that is really dedicated to fighting almost science fiction stuff, almost the supernatural. Certainly diabolical things are afoot, and Joe Ledger needs to sort it out. The pacing in this book is fantastic. The character list is tight, so we don't have a million braids to follow, and each character is developed enough that we understand exactly who they are when they are on the page. I absolutely loved Patient Zero. Again, at first blush, I would have never picked this book up. I cannot wait to get to Joe Ledger number 2. This is a big recommend for me if you've not read Joe Ledger. Let's move on to the next book. Now, the next book I loved so much. The BellTube community gets a poll every month to vote in. And back in February or March, you guys had me read Gardens of the Moon, which is Malazan Book of the Fallen, the first book. I was completely blind to Malazan, and I'd also been doing Sun Eater series at the same time. So as soon as I finished Disquiet Gods, which is book 6 in Sun Eater, it was time to return to Malazan, and here we go with Deadhouse Gates. What did I think of it? Do I recommend it? I love this book. I cannot recommend this book enough. Now, I understand there's all kinds of reasons why people don't get started with Malazan. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But I want to take a look at some of my notes here because I did not want to forget anything that was impactful to me. This has incredible world building, like nothing else I've ever read before. It's got compelling characters that each have a unique voice, so you know who's on the page when they're on the page. One of the criticisms I've heard about Deadhouse Gates is that it doesn't flow great, coming right after Gardens of the Moon because it has, I've heard an entirely different cast. It's not. There are mostly different characters, but there are enough characters from Gardens of the Moon that the book does have some consistency to its feel. I loved this book. There's so much sprawling going on. We are following multiple plot lines, but they all seem to matter. There's no plot line in Deadhouse Gates that I was just like, meh, let's get to the next, big sub-series of what is happening here. No, this just kept coming and coming and coming. I think this book deserves all the accolades that it gets. I want to share with you real quick something about Malazan. It gets hailed all the time as kind of the most worrisome series for new people to start. Now, yeah, if you've never read fantasy before, I would not recommend you start with Malazan. That would be kind of dumb. That'd be like, hey, you know what? I've never done any rock climbing before. I think I will go climb one of the difficult, peaks in the world. That's what you're getting into with Malazan. But for some of you seasoned readers, if you've got a year or two of reading fantasy under your belt, or maybe you're somebody who's a sci-fi person who is completely great with galaxy-spanning space opera, then you are completely capable of reading Malazan. Some of the language is more difficult. Yeah, you know why? Because Steven Erikson's a great writer, and he knows a lot of words. His vocabulary is expansive. Does that make the book more difficult? Not really. Will it make you smarter? I don't know. Maybe. I know I learned a few new words reading it. But beyond that, you can appreciate fine art for what it is. And Malazan is fine art, right? So you may not love a particular painting in a museum, but if you've got an artist's eye, you can recognize the talent that went into writing it. Same goes for Malazan, right? So I've heard it takes about 3 or 4 books to really get into this series. Not for me. I was hooked at book 1. I loved Deadhouse Gates even more than Gardens of the Moon, which was tricky because Gardens of the Moon rocked, in my opinion. Now we're going to get into Memories of Ice next month. I did a September TBR video. I will throw a title card right here. Yeah, right here. It's not there right now in my living room, but by the time you see this BellTube community, I don't know what just fell. Oh, one of the amps. If we still have sound as this goes on, yeah, you'll know that there's a title card right there. The next 2 books that I read are for this Spiffbo competition. If you're unfamiliar, this is the self-published fantasy blog-off competition where 300 books get selected at random. And we're going to talk about this whole at random thing when I do my recap of all the books that I've read for this, particular competition. But I read 2 books this month. The first one is called The Warhog Paladins, a Lit RPG Adventure. Now, for the author who happened to get that book landed in my lap, if you guys are regular viewers here, you know I cover a ton of Lit RPG. So they certainly had a reader that is very familiar with Lit RPG, not somebody who either doesn't like it or is unaware of it. No, with me reading their book, they are getting probably the fairest shake that they possibly could get having a random book be judged by somebody totally random that happens to really enjoy Lit RPG. Will that get the Warhog Paladins, elevated in and of itself? Absolutely not. But at least I understood the book, so I can give it, like I said, that fair shake as we move on. Before I get into the second Spiffbo book that I read, just wanted to take a quick second to thank everybody who has liked and subscribed to the channel over the last month. Our channel is growing exponentially. It is quite literally, to again quote my good friend John, it's not blowing my hair back, but it is blowing my hair forward. At least, you can see the haircut. Anyway, I'm moving on. If you wouldn't mind, if you hit the like button, it helps this video do better and it helps our community grow. If you'd like to hang out with us more, if you want to, and what am I saying? Us. It's me. It's like there's no us. If you want to hang out with me more, think about hitting that subscribe button if you like the vibe of the channel. Moving on, the next book that I read in the month of August is also another Spiffbo book, and this is called The Handwarmers of Immortality by Karen McCompostine. By the way, the Warhog Paladins, a litrpg adventure, is written by somebody named Jer Patch. Apologize, Mr. Patch or Mrs. Patch. I don't know what Patch, either Patch. Apologies for not saying your name when I had the graphic up. But anyway, the Handwarmers of Immortality, I just finished it a couple of days ago. I'm not doing reviews on these books until, like I said, I've read all 6 of them to give them a fair shake. Suffice it to say that this book is very cleverly written, and it's also very niche. And it is niche, niche, niche. This thing is a parody of Highlander, the movie that came out in 1986, and all of its subsequent lore. Now, much like litrpg, am I the right reader? Am I the right judge to judge a Highlander, parody, essentially? Well, the proof's in the pudding, folks. These are all Highlander books, okay? So I am intimately familiar with Highlander. This book could not have landed in a more suitable lap to give it a fair shake. I'm going to let you guys know by the end of next month, in September, which of the 6 books that I've been given to be a subjudge for that will be passed along to Dr. Philip Chase, who is our team leader. Let's move on. The next book was such a blast. I cannot recommend this series enough. This is JCM Berne's Blood Reunion. It is book 3 in his Hybrid Helix sequence. Now, the Hybrid Helix sequence? I don't know, series. Either way, Joe, forgive me. Book 1's called Wistful Ascending, which is the name of a sentient space station. Say that 3 times fast. Some of you just paused it and tried that, and kudos to you. Good on ya, as they say. Anyway, Blood Reunion. This series is improving, and it was already good to begin with. What we have here is our main character, Rohan. He is essentially a sci-fi superhero living on a sentient space station. I just did it again. Props to me. And he's a tow chief. He literally tows in ships to the station. Why? Because he's retired from basically being a space warrior in service to the Empire. This book, we start to get a little bit more development, not only into some of the other characters that live on the station, but also into Rohan's past himself, including family members, including what he used to do prior to his current job. It's just a ton of fun. And you know what I appreciate the most about this series? Some people will throw, the term palate cleanser out. And I've, kind of done that before too. So you finish something like Malazan and your brain's a little heavy and it's complicated and you've kind of spent your brain juice, and you use something like, a Blood Reunion book to get your mind mojo back. I don't know if palate cleanser is the right word. I think this book does exactly what it promises. It delivers on its promise, and in any product that you make, right? Whether it be a book or a movie or any kind of entertainment or just a product in general that you go buy, what you're looking for is something that delivers on its promise and, if possible, exceeds expectations. So far, for me, this series has exceeded all of my expectations. To be honest, I read Wistful Ascending about a year ago. I read it because I happened to have a little bit of familiar friendships with some other people. We had mutual friends, I guess is a better word to say. I had mutual friends with the author, Joe Berne, and I wanted to read the book for no other reason than that. When friends of mine write books, I read them. When friends of mine write books, I try to read them too, and that was really the case with book 1 in this series. Talk about really expectations being exceeded 100% with this book. I have yet to meet anybody that I'm friendly with that put down book one and said, that's just a terrible book. They're fun. They deliver. Go get The Hybrid Helix by J.C.M. Berne. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. The sixth book that I read in August was entirely due to you guys, the BellTube community. Yeah, these are the subscribers that answer the free poll. And typically what I'll do is somewhere around about the third week of each month, I'll throw out a few books into a free community poll that everybody gets to vote on. And if you want, there's always an open fourth choice, right? So you can put other and write in the comments which book you suggest. And if enough people upvote it, there's a reasonable chance that I will include it in the TBR as well. Because I want this to be a community. This is not just me reading books and telling you what I think of them. This is kind of a back and forth is how I see BellTube as a channel. I think I can be a little bit more valuable to you this way because I can kind of be that centerpiece with a whole lot of people recommending a whole lot of books, and I can try to keep it organized, and it's fun for me because I get to read the books. Now, is there a potential for a disastrous poll result? There is. And we're going to talk about that right now. I am, as filming this, by the way, by the time you see this, I will have completed this book. I am about 80% done with The Wandering Inn Volume 1 on audio. All right, you guys, I know I'm probably going to lose a couple of subscribers for what I'm about to say. I hope you bear with me and follow my thinking here enough that what I'm saying isn't crapping on the book at all, because I don't think any author who's taken the time to write a book should be, just dumped on for whatever reason. It's just my opinion. But there are some things in The Wandering Inn that I have some serious issues with, and I'd like to share them with you, see if you agree, see if you don't. And for those of you who are contemplating The Wandering Inn, I'm going to tell you some things that are pretty cool, some things that maybe could do way better. Let's just talk about the first one, the obvious one. This is a huge book. I'm doing it on audio. It's 43 hours. Now, if you're somebody that has an Audible membership, right? You get a couple of credits each month, however that works. Now, that's a great value, right? Because think about all the hours of entertainment you are getting for a single credit. That single credit could be used for a 6-hour book. You are getting literally 5 times the amount of an audiobook for the same amount of money. So for that reason, maybe The Wandering Inn is good value. But there's a lot of issues that I have with it. The first being the first 20 to 25 hours just don't go anywhere. They didn't go anywhere for me at all. I kind of cared about the main character a little bit. Not enough though. Not for 20 some hours. It just droned on and on and on for me. I liked a couple of the monster kind of main characters that we get right off the bat. They're interesting. They're unique. There's no doubt about that. But again, they don't really do anything either. I felt like I was calling The Wandering Inn the Meandering Inn. Again, not to dump on the book, because I know it's got tons of fans. It's one of the most successful lit RPG series ongoing. It's huge. I think my buddy Andrew at Andrew's Wizardly Reads said it's currently longer than The Wheel of Time by far. I think that's problematic. I think when we're asking people on volume 1 to start with a 43-hour book that really doesn't do anything for the first half of the book, is entirely disjointed in places. And I know, based on some comments that I got on X when I started talking about this book, a lot of the really devoted fan base of Wandering Inn said, Brian, you can't listen to the book. Don't read the Kindle version either, because Pirateaba, who is the author of the book and the author of the series, realized that there are problems with volume 1 and went back to the website and corrected it and rewrote a bunch of it. And the best way to consume Wandering Inn volume 1 is on the website. Great. Here's the problem. I have no interest in reading a book online on a website. It's just not for me. If that's something that works for you, then that's how I'd probably recommend doing, this book experience. I think that the Audible narrator does a fantastic job here. I find nothing wrong with her performance whatsoever. But I'm just kind of a perfectionist in the sense that if you're going to do something, do it right. If you're going to go out and rewrite books, then you ought to rewrite them not only for the website, but also for the Kindle version. And you know what? Rather than maybe coming up with book 5 or book 6 or wherever she's at in the Wandering Inn right now, go back and re-record book 1 instead, at least the parts that have changed. And through the miracle of technology, we can cut and paste. And I assure you, this video is going to be very cut and pasted. In editing, we can fix it in post. We can fix everything in post. But you can go back and re-record it and put it out as a complete product. I just think it's incredibly... Gosh, I hate using this word, but I'm going to use it. I think it's lazy. I think it's lazy to not redo the audio and still sell it as the final work with a bunch of caveats saying, oh, but go read it on the website. No, thank you. For a 43-hour experience, I want a complete experience, especially if the author is still writing in the series. Call a timeout. Call an audible. Go fix the first book. One of the other big issues I want to talk about Wandering Inn, and this isn't just for Wandering Inn. This is for every author who plays chess. I have noticed this over the years, and it drives me bonkers. I play chess. I play chess online almost every day, okay? I know how the pieces move. I'm not great, but I can play a pretty decent game of chess when I want to. What really gets under my skin, though, is when authors take their passion for chess and pretend that every reader gives any kind of crap about chess. All you need to do is say they were playing chess, or describe that one of the players is a good chess player and one of them's a newbie and blah, blah, blah. No, we are getting extended scenes of chess moves, move by move by move. I get it, Pirateaba. You understand how to play chess. That's great. I get the fact that your main character can close her eyes and visualize the chessboard and call out, chess movements. And I get all of that. But you know what? I think for the most part, the average reader doesn't care. They don't need that drilled down level of detail. And furthermore, people like me who do play chess, they don't want it either. We go pick up a chess book, right? If we want to be wowed by somebody's chess knowledge, I will go pick up a Garry Kasparov, manual on how to play chess rather than reading about it in a fantasy book. I know that might seem a little bit harsh, but I have to tell you, I felt like the level of chess that I got in book 1 was borderline obnoxious. Again, I don't want to be too cruel on this book because I know a lot of you love it. And one thing I've learned, in my very short time doing BookTube is, to not, as they say, yuck on other people's yums. I don't want to yuck your yum. If you love Wandering Inn, terrific. But a lot of people do tune into the channel to find out what I think of books. And in particular, litrpg is something that I spend a lot of time reading. I spend a lot of time here on the channel talking about, and I got to give you my unfiltered, opinion. Had it not won the poll, I would have quit this book 40% into it. But you guys are the BellTube community. I will never quit a book on you. I don't DNF and never would DNF a book you guys picked. I am powering through this. I am doing it for you. Let's move on to another topic. I think you know where I'm at with The Wandering Inn. So we started this last month and it became such a fan favorite. I guess we're doing it again. Yeah, we've got a section in our monthly recap. It's a little bit daunting to think about, but we are calling it Rick's Picks. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Rick Thunder. Guess what, everybody? It's me, Rick Thunder. I'm back, and that's a fact. Okay, Brian asked me to come on and tell you what I read in August. And to be honest with you, I don't read a whole lot in the summer because it's kind of like, party season. And I've got like my red whipped cream. Actually, this isn't even red. It's just called Ready Whip. Anyway, so I only read one book in the month of August, and it was so good. Now, this is by a friend of mine, a close personal friend, Gene Simmons. The name of the book is called Sex, Money, Kiss. Now, I know a little bit about all three of those. And, true story, long time ago, back in like the 80s, Rick Thunder was asked by Gene Simmons. He said, Rick Thunder, would you be interested in becoming our synth pop part of Kiss? And I said, Gene Simmons, I don't know. Do you think that Kiss could use a synth pop player? Do you think it would work? And Gene Simmons looked at me and he said, Rick Thunder, I know it would work. And then, unfortunately, I woke up in the hospital and missed the whole tour due to a series of hot tub accidents. But anyway, I read this book. I learned so much about my friend Gene. I didn't know his tongue is literally 12 miles long. That's how big his tongue is. That's crazy. Also, Gene Simmons, he can spit blood. He doesn't even need to have a hot tub accident. He actually just spits blood. And the coolest part about Gene Simmons, by far, oh my God, I love this guy so much. The coolest thing is he can breathe fire like Godzilla. Oh, Gene Simmons, this book is so good. It's definitely Rick Thunder's pick. And that's a fact. We did a couple of live streams in August for our show For Whom the Bell Tolls. If you've not checked it out yet, it's all in the playlist in the BellTube catalog. But our first one that we did was with Jonathan Cohn. He's another booktuber who does all kinds of cool science fiction and fantasy. He is sort of my go-to on all things Star Wars and Star Trek. What a fun individual Jonathan is. I had a lot of compliments about his time on the channel, particularly with a lot of you viewers who'd not heard of his channel before. So thank you, Jonathan, for coming on. I also want to thank Mr. Tom Orange himself for joining me For Whom the Bell Tolls. Tom had just got back from the motorcycle rally at Sturgis and graciously came on our show just like a day or two after that very, very long motorcycle journey. Had a blast talking to Tom too. We've done 17 episodes of For Whom the Bell Tolls. They're just getting better and better, you guys. I'm making some incredible friends within the booktube community. And one of the things that I like the most are that some of the bigger booktubers are willing to come on my channel and talk because they think the show might be pretty quality. I hope. I don't know. But that's really fun. Another great aspect is that some of the smaller booktubers that I'm looking at as I cast my gaze, through the next 6 months, we're going to highlight some of them too, because I want to pay things forward. And while, yes, it is great to have somebody like a Mike come on who has 120,000 subscribers, or somebody that's coming up next week who has over 250,000 subscribers, that's an incredible feat for me. That would be a good get, I guess, as they would say in show business. But I also want to pay it forward because those guys are coming on my channel to help me, not to help themselves. I want to be able to do the same thing. So I'm going to highlight some channels that maybe are just kind of getting off the ground, or maybe if they've been around for a little bit and haven't found their traction. So if you get a call from BellTube, you get a call from me saying, hey, I'd like you to come on the program, and maybe your channel is not even 1,000 subscribers yet and you're not monetized, it's going to happen with some people. I'm a big believer in paying things forward, and that's one way that we're going to do it here. We did put out a few great videos this month too, by the way, and I'm going to put cards up here over my shoulder as I mention them. So if you want to go binge a bunch of BellTube, if you're new here, I'll make it as easy as possible. I did a video called Hidden Gems. These are fantasy series that maybe are under people's radar that I think work really, really well. That video did pretty well, as a matter of fact. Did another video showing my favorite motley crews in fantasy. These are, books that have random casts of characters that really don't have anything in common, but they come together for a common goal, and the book works. I will admit my Motley Cruz video did not do as well as I'd hoped, but you know what? Every video is just kind of like a crapshoot, right? You do the best you can on this side of the camera, and then you got to release it into the world, and however, the world looks at it is how they looked at it. I was a little disappointed, to be honest with you. I thought Motley Cruz would be a little bit of more interest, but you know what? We move along, and we moved on in a huge way, because just 2 days ago, I put out a video that is all about great, quick, long weekend reads, and that video is doing fantastic. In its first 24 hours, it's exceeded all of my expectations. It's exceeded all of the other videos that I've done in the last 3 months. I just want to thank everybody who's watched any of those videos, and in particular that one that I just mentioned, the great books for a long weekend, because it's done quite well and it's helped our channel grow. A bunch of new subscribers jumped in overnight, so thank you. Of course, I also put out the September TBR video. If you want to know what's on deck in September, if maybe you are a new person here and you have no idea what I'm about to read, that's the video for you. I'll put up a card right here. You guys are going to get a lot to binge over this holiday weekend. I hope you enjoy it. So here we are. It's time to award a book of the month. If you watched my reviews just now, you already know what won. This is an easy one for me. Folks, while I loved Patient Zero, while I loved Blood Reunion, while I am not really telling anybody quite yet what I think of the Spiff Box books, what I told you about Wandering in length ad nauseum, that only leaves one contender, right? And boy, is this deserving of the book of the month. You got it. Deadhouse Gates, Malazan Book of the Fallen coming through. I think Gardens of the Moon won my book of the month in that month too. So I think you're going to see some Malazan when we do our top 10 at the end of the year. Thank you guys for recommending Malazan. Deadhouse Gates, August 2024, book of the month. Okay, and that's going to get us to the one for the road today. As we, kind of close out August, it feels like summer's, moving past us, and we are entering what happens to be my favorite season, fall. I thought it might be a good time to think about taking a moment in our day to reflect on this last summer. Let's reflect on June, July, and August, just as individuals, and think about some of our wins that we had, because I know it's really easy to focus on things that aren't going well. It's human nature, but the more practice we give ourselves thinking about the wins and the successes and the accomplishments, even if they're just teensy tiny ones, I think it compounds into feeling better. I think it compounds into getting better results. So my challenge for us today is, if you can get a few minutes carved out, sit down with a pen and paper, maybe just at your keyboard, and write down a couple of things that over the last summer and the last 90 days, you felt you got a win on. Maybe it was reading a great book that you'd been putting off. Maybe it was just getting something accomplished in your professional life or your personal life. Whatever it is, I think this is a really good time to reflect on some of the wins. We focus on our misses far too much. Let's focus on the wins. I think that's worth doing, and I hope you decide to take me up on that. This has been a great month, you guys. I'm so excited as we get into September. Stay positive, and of course, here's your fortune.